My name is Darlene Mitchell. I'm 28 years old, and my entire world crumbled at my mom's birthday party in Scottsdale. Picture this: a beautiful evening family gathered around the dinner table, candles flickering on the cake, and then my mom leaned forward, her eyes locked on mine, and asked the question that would destroy everything I thought I knew about my family. Darlene, the $500,000 your father and I gave you, what did you do with it? My fork froze halfway to my mouth. $500,000. My heart hammered against my ribs as the words echoed in my head. What, $500,000? I stammered, my voice barely above a whisper. What do you mean, Mom? That's when I saw my brother's face across the table. The color drained from his skin like someone had pulled a plug, his hands trembling as he gripped his wine glass. The room fell into a deadly silence, every guest staring at us, waiting for my answer to a question about money I'd never seen, never heard of, never knew existed. But someone in my family knew exactly where that money went, and 30 minutes later, I would discover the truth that would tear our family apart forever. The betrayal that followed would cost more than just money. It would cost relationships, trust, and a future I thought was secure. If your family betrayed you over money, what would you do? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Let me take you back to where this nightmare actually began, just a week before that devastating birthday dinner. I'd been working as a graphic designer in Chicago for the past 5 years, grinding away at a mid-sized marketing firm. The work was demanding, but I loved it, creating visual campaigns and dreaming about opening my own design studio someday. That dream felt closer than ever when my parents had promised to help me financially, though I had no idea just how much they'd planned to give me. It was a Tuesday afternoon when my phone rang. Harrison Mitchell, my 30-year-old brother, was calling from Phoenix. We weren't particularly close, Harrison and I. Growing up, he'd always been the golden child, charming and confident, while I was the quiet one who kept to herself. As adults, we maintained a polite but distant relationship, talking maybe once a month. "Hey, Darlene." His voice sounded strained, almost nervous. "I need to tell you something about Mom's birthday party this weekend." I set down my coffee, immediately alert. Mom had been planning this party for months, her 60th birthday celebration at their house in Scottsdale. She'd invited extended family, old friends, the works. It was supposed to be the biggest party they'd thrown in years. "What about it?" I asked, already sensing something was wrong. "It's canceled," Harrison said quickly. "Mom came down with something nasty, probably the flu. She's been in bed for 2 days, can barely keep food down. Dad thinks it's better to postpone until she's feeling better." My heart sank. I'd already booked my flight to Phoenix, taken time off work, even bought Mom a beautiful piece of custom jewelry from a local artisan in Chicago. "Is she okay? Should I still come? I could help take care of her." "No, no." Harrison's voice got sharper, more insistent. "She's really contagious, and Dad doesn't want anyone else getting sick. Best to just stay in Chicago this time. We'll reschedule when she's better." Something felt off about this conversation, but I couldn't put my finger on what. "Can I talk to Mom or Dad?" "They're both sleeping right now. You know how Dad gets when Mom's sick, he's been hovering over her all day. I'll have them call you later when they're up for it." I hung up, feeling uneasy. In all my 28 years, I'd never known Mom to miss her own birthday party. She was the type who'd show up to events with a fever if she had to. And why hadn't she called me herself? We talked at least twice a week, and she always called me directly about important things. Hours passed and no call came. I tried reaching Mom's cell phone, but it went straight to voicemail. Dad's phone did the same thing. By evening, I was genuinely worried. This wasn't like them at all. The next day, I called Aunt Margaret, my dad's sister, who lived 20 minutes from my parents in Phoenix. She was always plugged into family news, and if anyone would know about Mom being sick, it would be her. "Sick?" Margaret's voice sounded genuinely surprised. "I was just at their house yesterday afternoon, and Patricia seemed fine. We were discussing the menu for her party, actually. She was excited about the caterer they hired." My stomach dropped. Are you sure Harrison told me she has the flu? That's odd. I mean, I suppose she could have gotten sick after I left, but she was perfectly healthy when I saw her. Actually, she was asking if I thought they'd ordered enough champagne for 60 people. After I hung up with Margaret, my mind was racing. Why would Harrison lie about Mom being sick? Why would he want me to stay away from the party? That evening, I decided to do a little digging on social media. I rarely checked Harrison's accounts, but curiosity got the better of me. What I found made my blood run cold. Just 3 weeks ago, Harrison had posted photos from what looked like an expensive resort in Napa Valley. Wine tastings, 5-star restaurants, a luxury suite with a view. The week before that, he'd shared pictures of a brand new BMW in his driveway, a sleek black sedan that must have cost at least $60,000. I scrolled back further. Designer clothes, expensive watches, receipts from high-end restaurants in Scottsdale that I knew cost hundreds per meal. Harrison had always done well for himself working in commercial real estate, but this level of spending was new. This was way beyond his usual lifestyle. My hands trembled as I continued scrolling. A golf trip to Pebble Beach, front row seats at a Suns game, a Rolex that gleamed on his wrist in a recent selfie. When had my brother become so wealthy? I called Margaret back, trying to keep my voice casual. Hey, it's me again. I was just curious, has Harrison seemed different to you lately? Like, has he been spending a lot of money on things? Margaret paused for a long moment. You know, now that you mention it, yes. He's been flashing cash around quite a bit recently. New car, expensive dinners when we run into him at restaurants. Your mother mentioned she was surprised by some of his recent purchases. She wondered if he'd gotten a big promotion or something. My heart was pounding now. Harrison's sudden wealth, his insistence that I stay away from Mom's party, the lies about her being sick. None of it made sense, but all of it felt connected somehow. I made a decision that would change everything. I was going to Phoenix whether Harrison wanted me there or not. I sat at my desk in my Chicago apartment, staring at my laptop screen, the unease from Harrison's call still lingering. It was Wednesday morning, 2 days after he'd insisted Mom's party was canceled, and I couldn't shake the feeling that something was seriously wrong. His voice had been too sharp, too quick to keep me away from Phoenix. I needed to know why. I opened my bank account, the one holding the $800,000 Mom and Dad had wired me months ago to start my design studio. I'd been careful, keeping every cent safe while I researched locations in Phoenix, dreaming of moving back home. As I scrolled through my transaction history, my heart skipped a beat. A transfer dated 4 weeks ago stared back at me, $500,000 gone with only a vague reference number and no recipient listed. My hands shook as I reread the entry. $500,000. I'd thought the $800,000 was everything my parents gave me, their gift to build my future. This didn't make sense. Had they sent more? And if so, why hadn't they told me? I grabbed my phone and called the bank. My voice tight as I asked about the transfer. The representative's tone was calm but unhelpful. The transfer is linked to a joint account, not your personal one, she said. You'd need to speak with the primary account holder for details. The reference number doesn't show up in our system as tied to your name. Joint account, I pressed, my pulse racing. What joint account? I don't have one. I'm sorry, ma'am, that's all I can see. You'll need to contact the account holder directly. I hung up, my mind racing. A joint account. My parents had never mentioned anything like that. I tried calling Mom's cell, then Dad's, hoping for answers. Both went straight to voicemail, just like yesterday. My stomach twisted, a mix of frustration and dread building. Harrison's lie about Mom's illness, this mystery transfer. It felt like pieces of a puzzle, and I didn't like the picture they were forming. I opened my email, searching for any clue from Mom or Dad about the money. Nothing. No mention of $500,000, no talk of a joint account. The silence from them was deafening, not like their usual check-ins about my work or plans. I leaned back, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of it. If that money was meant for me, where was it? And why was Harrison so desperate to keep me in Chicago? I couldn't wait for answers. I booked a flight to Phoenix for Friday night landing in time for Mom's party on Saturday. If Harrison thought he could stop me from showing up, he was wrong. I needed to see Mom to hand her the gift I'd spent weeks designing, a silver necklace with a pendant etched with her initials, a piece that felt personal. A thank you for everything she and Dad had done. I checked my bag, making sure the necklace box was secure, its weight a small comfort against the growing storm in my mind. I texted a friend in Phoenix asking her to pick me up from the airport and drop me at my parents' house in Scottsdale. She replied instantly, "Can't wait to see you. Party's gonna be huge." Huge. So the party was definitely happening. Harrison's lie was unraveling, and I was about to walk right into it. Friday evening, I boarded the plane, my carry-on clutched tight. The 3-hour flight felt endless, every minute ticking by with a mix of anticipation and fear. Whatever Harrison was hiding, it was bigger than a canceled party. And when I stepped into that house in Scottsdale, I was determined to find out the truth. Saturday evening, I pulled up to my parents' house in Scottsdale, the familiar Adobe-style home glowing with string lights. Cars lined the street, music hummed from inside, and laughter spilled out through open windows. My friend dropped me off, and I gripped the necklace box, my heart pounding. The party was in full swing. Mom wasn't sick. The celebration wasn't canceled. Harrison had lied to keep me away, and I was about to find out why. Stepping inside, I was hit with a wave of chatter and clinking glasses. The living room was packed, relatives and friends mingling, a long table set with catered appetizers. Mom stood near the center, radiant in a navy dress, laughing with a cousin. Dad was by her side, pouring wine, his smile wide. They looked perfectly fine, not a trace of the flu Harrison had described. My chest tightened with a mix of relief and anger. Why had he made it up? I wove through the crowd, spotting Aunt Margaret by the dessert table, her eyes lighting up when she saw me. "Darlene, you made it," she said, pulling me into a quick hug. "Your mom's been asking about you all evening." "I wouldn't miss it," I said, forcing a smile, my mind still on that $500,000 transfer I'd found. I caught sight of Harrison across the room in a tailored suit, chatting with guests, his laugh too loud, too forced. He hadn't seen me yet, but his posture was tense, like he was on edge. I made my way to Mom, the necklace box in my hand. "Happy birthday," I said, handing her the gift. Her face lit up as she opened it, revealing the silver necklace I'd designed, her initials catching the light. "Darlene, this is beautiful," she said, pulling me into a warm hug. "You didn't have to come all this way." "I wanted to," I said, my voice steady, despite the storm brewing inside. Dad joined us, his arm around Mom. "Good to see you, kiddo," he said, his grin genuine. But as I stepped back, I noticed Harrison watching me from the corner, his eyes narrowing for a split second before he turned away. The party hummed along, guests toasting and sharing stories. I stuck close to Aunt Margaret, who whispered, "Something's off with Harrison. He's been avoiding your parents all night, sticking to the edges of the room." Her words sent a chill through me, but I nodded, keeping my eyes on him. As the cake was brought out, everyone gathered around the dining table, candles flickering. Mom stood at the head, ready to cut the first slice, Dad beside her, beaming. I raised my glass, about to join the toast, when Mom turned to me, her expression shifting to something serious, her voice cutting through the chatter. "Darlene," she said, loud enough for the room to hear, "the $500,000 your father and I gave you, what did you do with it?" My glass froze in my hand, wine nearly spilling. $500,000. My heart slammed against my ribs, the room spinning. "What do you mean, Mom?" I managed my voice, barely a whisper. Every eye turned to me, the air heavy with silence. Across the table, Harrison's face drained of color, his hands gripping the edge of his chair. He tried to laugh, but it came out shaky. "She's probably just busy with work, Mom," he said, his voice high-pitched. "You know how it is in Chicago." Dad's eyes narrowed, his jaw tight. "Harrison." "I'm asking Darlene," he said, his tone sharp, cutting through the murmurs. I looked from Mom to Dad, their faces etched with confusion, then to Harrison, who wouldn't meet my gaze. My throat tightened, the transfer I'd seen flashing in my mind. "I don't know about any $500,000, I said, my voice cracking. "You gave me $500,000 for my studio and I'm using it for that. But this other money, I never got it." The room went still, guests shifting uncomfortably. Mom's hand gripped Dad's arm, her eyes wide. "Darlene, we sent you and Harrison $500,000 each, separate from the studio money," she said, her voice trembling. "It was for your futures, no strings attached. You're saying you didn't know?" My stomach dropped. $500,000 for me? I shook my head, anger rising. "No, Mom, I swear. I never heard about it, never saw it." My eyes locked on Harrison, his face pale as paper, his fingers twisting his napkin. Harrison opened his mouth, his voice desperate. "Maybe it's a bank error, Mom, Dad. You know how these things get mixed up." But his words sounded hollow, his eyes darting to the floor. Aunt Margaret stepped forward, her expression grim, holding a thin folder. "It's not a bank error," she said, her voice steady. She opened the folder, pulling out printed emails and receipts. "I accessed the joint account logs this morning after Darlene told me about a strange transfer. Harrison, your name's all over the withdrawals. $500,000 moved to your personal account 4 weeks ago." Harrison's chair scraped back, his face crumpling. "It was a mistake," he stammered, barely audible. I thought it was mine." Dad's voice rose, his fists clenched. "A mistake. You took your sister's money and thought we wouldn't notice." Mom's hand flew to her mouth, tears welling. The guests stood frozen, the cake forgotten as the truth hung heavy in the air. I stared at Harrison, my anger boiling over. The family I thought I knew was unraveling, and there was no going back. The dining room stayed silent, every word echoing like a hammer. Dad's face was stone, his eyes fixed on Harrison, who slumped in his chair, his excuse of a mistake hanging in the air like a bad smell. The dining room moments ago, filled with birthday cheer, now felt like a courtroom, every guest a silent juror. Mom's hands trembled, her necklace box forgotten on the table, her shock mirroring mine. Aunt Margaret stood firm, her folder of evidence, emails, and receipts still open, undeniable. I glared at Harrison, my voice shaking with fury. "You thought $500,000 was yours? You lied to keep me away, didn't you?" My words cut through the silence, sharp and raw. Harrison's eyes darted around, searching for an escape, but the room had him cornered. "Dad, Mom, I can explain." He stammered, his face ashen, sweat beading on his forehead. "I didn't mean to take Darlene's money. I thought the account was shared, for both of us." Shared. Dad's voice rose, his fists clenched on the table. "We set up separate accounts for you and Darlene, $500,000 each for your futures. You're saying you took hers by accident." His disbelief was palpable, his words dripping with betrayal. Mom stepped closer, her eyes wet but fierce. "Harrison, how could you? We trusted you." Her voice broke, and I felt a pang in my chest. They hadn't known, neither of them. Harrison had played us all. Harrison's shoulders slumped, his voice barely a whisper. "I thought I could pay it back before anyone noticed. I got in over my head with some investments, bad deals. I needed the money to cover them." "Cover them?" I snapped, my anger boiling over. "You spent my future on a yacht and Vegas trips. You lied about Mom being sick to keep me from finding out." My hands balled into fists, the weight of his betrayal sinking in. That money was meant for my design studio, my dream, and he'd burned through it like it was nothing. Dad's jaw tightened, his voice low and final. "That's enough, Harrison. You're done." He pulled out his phone, dialing with steady hands. "I'm calling the police. This ends now." Harrison's eyes widened, his chair scraping as he stood, but Dad's glare pinned him in place. "Sit down," Dad said, his tone leaving no room for argument. Mom clutched her arms, tears streaming down her face. "How could you do this to your sister?" she whispered, her voice raw with pain. The guests backed away, some slipping toward the door, their murmurs fading into the background. Aunt Margaret stayed by my side, her presence grounding me as I fought to keep my composure. Within minutes, 2 officers arrived, their badges glinting under the chandelier. Dad explained the situation, his voice steady despite the fury in his eyes. "My son took $500,000 from my daughter's account without permission," he said, handing over Margaret's folder. "We want to press charges." The officers nodded, one jotting notes while the other approached Harrison. "Mr. Mitchell, we need you to come with us to the station for questioning," he said, his tone calm but firm. Harrison's face crumpled, but he nodded, following them out, his tailored suit now looking like a costume that didn't fit. At the Scottsdale police station, the fluorescent lights cast a harsh glow over the small room where I sat with Dad and Aunt Margaret. Mom stayed home, too shaken to come. An officer badge reading Sergeant Carter faced us, flipping through the evidence. Mr. Harrison Mitchell admitted to accessing the joint account and transferring $500,000 to his personal account, he said. He claims he believed it was his, but the account logs are clear. Your name wasn't on it, Miss Mitchell. He made multiple withdrawals over 3 weeks. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. What did he spend it on? I asked, dreading the answer. The officer glanced at his notes. Besides the condo down payment and yacht rental, he paid off a $40,000 credit card debt, bought jewelry worth $10,000, and spent heavily on entertainment, casinos, restaurants, a private golf club membership. We traced about $470,000. Only $30,000 remains in his accounts. My heart sank. $470,000 gone. My future reduced to a fraction. Dad's hand gripped the chair, his knuckles white. "He'll pay for this," he said, his voice low and resolute. "Every cent." The officer nodded. "This qualifies as felony theft under Arizona law. He's looking at charges likely second degree with up to 7 years if convicted. We've seized what's left in his accounts, and he'll face a restitution order. But with most of the money spent, recovery will be difficult." Aunt Margaret squeezed my shoulder, her eyes steady. "You did the right thing, Darlene," she said softly. I nodded, but the weight of it all pressed down: my brother's betrayal, my parents' shock, the money I'd never see again. The law would handle Harrison, but the damage was done. The station's cold air followed us as we left, the night heavy with consequences. Weeks later, I sat in Dad's office in Scottsdale, the air heavy with the scent of leather and old books. Dad sat across from me, his face etched with exhaustion, his resolve hardened. Attorney Wilson, our family lawyer, walked in, her briefcase clicking open on the desk. Darlene Roberts made significant changes to his estate. Wilson said, her tone professional but gentle. She slid a document toward me, pages crisp and final. "He's ready to explain." Dad leaned forward, his eyes locking on mine. "I've rewritten my will," he said, his voice firm. "The house in Scottsdale worth over $1 million, and the family investment accounts nearly $2 million go to you alone. Harrison gets nothing." His words landed like a stone, rippling through the quiet room. The house, with its sprawling backyard and adobe charm, was Mom and Dad's pride. The accounts, built from Dad's real estate deals, were meant for our family's future. I swallowed hard, my throat tight. "Are you sure, Dad?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. Inheriting everything felt heavy, not just for the wealth, but for what it meant: no turning back, no family left with Harrison. He nodded, his jaw set. "You didn't deserve what he did, Darlene. He stole your future, $500,000, and lied to us all. He's no longer part of this family." Mom, sitting beside him, looked down, her hands clasped tightly. Her silence spoke of grief, but she didn't protest. Harrison's actions had severed something permanent. Wilson adjusted her glasses, her voice steady. "The will is airtight. Harrison's been removed as a beneficiary. You, Darlene, are the sole heir to the house and accounts. We've also ensured the $800,000 for your studio remains untouched in your personal account." I nodded, the weight of it settling in. That $800,000 mom and dad's gift for my design studio was my lifeline now. I'd left my job in Chicago, moved back to Phoenix, and leased a sleek storefront in downtown Scottsdale. The studio named Mitchell Designs was taking shape: white walls, modern displays, my artwork lining the shelves. I'd poured every ounce of energy into it, sourcing local prints, collaborating with Arizona artists, building a space that felt like mine. Opening the studio wasn't easy. Late nights, balancing budgets, learning retail software, and wondering if I'd made the right choice kept me awake. But customers started coming, first a trickle, then a steady stream. A local blog called Mitchell Designs a Phoenix Gem, and by the third month, I was breaking even. The $800,000 had given me a chance to rebuild, to turn loss into something real. Harrison, meanwhile, had unraveled. After the police station, he'd moved out of his upscale Scottsdale condo, the one he'd bought with my money. The court had seized his remaining $30,000 and ordered him to sell assets to cover restitution. His BMW, his jewelry, even the golf club membership liquidated for a fraction of what he owed, barely $60,000 total. He'd rented a small apartment in Mesa, a rundown complex far from the life he'd flaunted. He took a job as a car salesman, scraping by to meet court-ordered payments, his charm useless against the weight of his debt. Mom and Dad had cut him off completely. No calls, no visits, no second chances. I'd tried to feel something: anger, pity, but there was only emptiness. Harrison had chosen greed over family, and now he faced the consequences alone. I didn't reach out. The line he'd crossed was final, a wall I couldn't scale. Mom struggled with it, her eyes distant during our weekly dinners, but she never asked to see him. Dad was resolute, his trust shattered beyond repair. Aunt Margaret helped me settle into the Scottsdale house, now officially mine. We redecorated, painting over old memories with bright colors, filling the space with new art. Dad, semi-retired, spent his days tinkering in the garage, dropping by the studio with coffee, his laughter a small comfort. Margaret joined us for Sunday brunches, her stories of local art fairs keeping us grounded. Our family was smaller now, scarred but honest. Standing in the studio one evening, I looked at the sketches on my desk, plans for a new line of prints. The house, the money, the business, they were mine, but they came at a cost. Harrison's betrayal had taken $500,000, but it couldn't take my future. Months passed, and life moved forward. Mitchell Designs became my sanctuary, its sleek storefront a beacon in downtown Phoenix. The studio thrived, with local artists showcasing their work alongside mine, and a feature in a Phoenix magazine called it a rising star in Arizona's art scene. Customers filled the space, drawn by unique prints and custom designs, and, by the 6th month, I was turning a profit. The $800,000 from Mom and Dad had built something real, something I could call my own. Harrison's life, though, had collapsed. The court had charged him with second-degree felony theft, handing down a 36-month probation sentence and a restitution order for $500,000. With only $60,000 recovered from his liquidated assets, his BMW jewelry, and golf club membership, he was nowhere near covering the debt. His real estate job vanished after his arrest, clients unwilling to trust a thief. He bounced between odd jobs, bartending at a dive bar in Mesa, then working as a delivery driver, his income barely enough to cover rent in his cramped apartment. The court demanded monthly payments, but they trickled in, each one a reminder of his fall. I heard about his struggles through a mutual friend who mentioned Harrison's name coming up in a local bar, his once charming smile replaced by a tired slump. He'd lost his social circle, his reputation in Scottsdale's tight-knit community gone. The house and investment accounts, once his birthright, were now mine, sealed by Dad's revised will. There was no inheritance left for him, no safety net to cushion his mistakes. Mom and Dad stood firm, their decision final. Mom's grief lingered, her eyes often distant during our dinners, but she never spoke of reaching out to Harrison. Dad was quieter, his laughter rarer, but he never wavered. He made his choice. He'd say, his voice steady but heavy. They'd built a life for us, trusted us with their wealth, and Harrison's betrayal had broken that bond beyond repair. I felt the same. The brother I'd known, distant but familiar, was gone. There was no forgiveness, no path back. Aunt Margaret became my rock, helping me navigate the new normal. She'd drop by the studio, her sharp wit cutting through the lingering pain, sharing stories of her latest art finds. We'd sit with Dad in the Scottsdale house now filled with my sketches, and Mom's garden herbs rebuilding a family small but true. Their support kept me grounded, a reminder that trust once earned could endure. One evening, as I closed up Mitchell Designs, I stood outside the desert sunset, painting the sky in hues of orange and pink. I thought about the $500,000 Harrison had stolen, the future he'd tried to take. It wasn't just money, it was trust, family, a dream he'd gambled away for fleeting luxury. His greed had left him isolated, tethered to debt, and a life stripped of status. The lesson wasn't just about loss. It was about boundaries, about protecting what matters. Harrison's choices showed me the cost of crossing lines, of letting greed override loyalty. Setting firm boundaries, cutting him out, standing by my truth had saved my future. Trust, I learned, isn't just given, it's built and guarded. Mom, Dad, and Margaret had shown me that their honesty, a foundation stronger than any wealth. I locked the studio door, the city's lights twinkling against the mountains. Phoenix was my home now, my business a testament to what I'd fought for. Harrison's shadow couldn't touch that. Greed destroys, but boundaries and trust endure. My life rebuilt from the ashes of betrayal was proof of that.